So about me and the many hats that I wear, I am Stacey Ann Smith. As you guys would know, I am the founder and now the CEO of Pursued International Foundation, which just means I get to see what happens and run everything on a daily basis. I also am a podcast host for Constant Faithful Secure, actively involved in my church in the youth ministry. I am a big sister, auntie, a friend, and love the Lord. So Pursuit International Foundation is a non-profit charity that I started about 5 years ago. I shouldn't say about, but 5 years ago, through the experience I had in Indonesia. So a few years prior, I went to Indonesia on a mission trip where I learned about human trafficking and sex work and the effects it has on women and their souls. Now, this isn't new to me in terms of exploitation, because as a therapist I have worked with women who have been abused and exploited, but going to Indonesia and working with this ministry gave me a different angle to what it looks like to see women mistreated and used as cattle. I remember one night being in a room that looked like a bedroom, but one side was glass, and these men used pointers to select women from the room, and they were in rows and rows and rows just waiting to be picked. And I sat in there with these women, knowing I had the freedom to walk out that door and go home and rest. And there were women there who could not, because of whether their situation in terms of poverty and they had no choice, they thought, or because they were there not of their own volition. So that experience really impacted me. And when I came home, through prayer and some encouragement, I started this charity. It started first just to raise awareness about human trafficking and to share the gospel with sex workers in a local trafficking hotspot, but it has blossomed into so much more, with a mission of helping vulnerable, exploited women transform their lives through support, through care, through awareness, and through the gospel. In Jamaica, what happens here is startling in terms of the sex trade and also human trafficking. So human trafficking has three main parts: act, means, and purpose. It is the exploitation of human beings. It is the movement, transporting, recruiting, harboring of people through force, fraud, coercion, promise of gifts to exploit them, not only in the sex trade, but also in labor, which interestingly is where most of the victims are, according to the research. And in Jamaica, we do have instances of human trafficking. We have had cases with windshield wipers. We have had cases of persons being brought here from other countries to work in shops, to work in homes as domestic workers. We've also had cases internally or locally of persons working in bars and brothels. So human trafficking really occurs in our country. And the thing about why I began working in the area of working with sex workers is that many of the persons in the sex trade have been victimized by trafficking or are just more vulnerable to the issue of human trafficking. And the thing is, when I thought about how to engage with women in the sex trade, I remember sitting in a car with my friend praying one evening, asking God to guide us to where we should start engaging with the women, not knowing where I would find them. And we drove around Kingston and got to this particular spot where we're working right now. There were droves and droves of women, scantily clad, just looking to be able to make an income using their bodies. And it is heartbreaking, because as you get to know their stories, you see past what you see on the road. You meet mothers, you meet aunts, you meet sisters, you meet grandmothers who want so much more, who are taking care of ailing family members, who are taking care of children who ran away from ages like 12 and living on the street. And your heart towards them changes, because you realize what you see when you drive past is more than just a woman without clothing, but a woman who is in desperate need of survival. Why do I do the ministry and the work that I do? I don't think I chose it. I feel like this one chose me for multiple reasons. One, I didn't plan on reading an article about sex tourism. I didn't necessarily have a heart towards women in the sex trade. As a matter of fact, I, like everybody else, drove past them on the street, and I was one of the few that judged them before I knew them. My own experiences with abuse, I think all of that the Lord just used to prepare me to be in the place I'm at right now. When I was younger, I planned on being a lawyer. Through various issues and circumstances, I ended up choosing psychology, and I believe that the providential hand of God was so much on my life that even though I didn't plan these various things, they all came together to help me be effective in this area and have a heart of compassion towards women who weren't listened to, were not protected, were abandoned, misunderstood, and told they should do better and know better, and judged. And so I didn't choose this ministry. I would first say God chose it, and then it chose me. It's important to have a non-judgmental and empathetic attitude in this industry, but can I tell you, it can be hard. You start out pretty idealistic. You go in thinking, I'm gonna support and help, and a big part of our training is that we got trained through various individuals and agencies who've either had direct experience or who have experienced it before. So our staff and volunteers are trained by survivors who were in the sex trade and who were victims of trafficking. We also work with other parachurch organizations who already have street ministries to train us about the experience and what to expect. But there's nothing like sitting down on the roadside beside a woman and hearing that tonight she needs to send home some money to take care of the children tonight, and if she don't make a certain amount of money, she won't be able to feed her family. And in the middle of talking to you, a client comes for her to go and work, and you're hearing the kind of money they make per client, and you're like, this is not even lunch money for some of them. Some, yes, may work even more, and that's the case in terms of where you are on the spectrum. But when you really have a talk with them and hear these things and listen to their heart and hear what they wanted and hear how they felt and what they've experienced, your heart breaks. But then what can also happen, honestly, is that because it is a journey and because it's a process, you have to constantly remind yourself to be patient, because you'd want to be like, okay, here are the things, here's how I found I can help you, here's some information, here's an avenue, and they don't take it, or they keep coming back, or they do it but still go back on the road. And you have to remind yourself that healing takes time. Overcoming a mentality or a belief or an identity that you have created about yourself takes time. And if it wasn't for, I don't know, my experiences, my ability to get education, my community, could I just be the same? And so it's starting out empathetic, learning how to be empathetic, and then reminding yourself every single time when disappointments come, when you see the girl return to the street after coming off, and you're like, yeah man, this girl is finished. And then months later you see her again, and have to be like, I still love you. You're still good. You're still valuable. We're gonna just try again. It's a process and it takes work. Is there a battle between us giving them a message of hope and the world that they live in telling them otherwise? There's always a battle. I think all of us face that battle daily, whether you're a woman that we work with, or a man in corporate, you're constantly fighting the internal battle between am I worth it and what persons say about you. The important thing is the constant reminder that you are worth it. You are valuable. You are an image bearer. You are a child of God. There's a purpose for you. And so because of that, we keep going. A friend of mine quotes another friend of ours that said, darkness can only prevail where there is no light. So light has to keep shining so the darkness can disappear and dissipate. So yeah, we're fighting against the lies in their head, the lies that people around them tell them, the lies that the men that sleep with them say to them. But if we don't stop, if we stop sharing the truth, and the lies will have a chance to take over. And I don't want that to happen. I'd rather keep sharing the truth and the light. So in the work that we do, collaboration is crucial because we can't do everything. We collaborate with churches, we collaborate with other parachurch organizations, and we try to reach out to persons who provide mental health support, provide skills training, and provide even jobs whenever possible. So I remember one of my favorite collaborations, honestly, was during the pandemic. We partnered with 876 Volunteer, which, shout out to Simone Brown, an amazing woman, lovely, lovely heart. So we partnered together along with Girls First International, and we just kind of hit the social media platforms to be able to get volunteers and get groceries during the pandemic. So for those of you who want to forget that horrible time of our lives in 2020 and 2021 and maybe in 2022, the pandemic meant we couldn't have contact, we couldn't be on the road, we couldn't do anything. And in the sex trade, that kind of is what you do, contact. And so no, they weren't eating, and so I prayed about how to continue to support them, and we gave over probably 100 women grocery packages, not only in Kingston. I was able to send some to women who had left Kingston and gone to various parishes. We sent groceries out to them. We were able to give some of our grocery packages to other organizations who help exploited women. It was such a great example of lots of groups coming together. I remember Muffin Cafe came on and we could leave our stuff by them. Like, so many groups came together to be able to feed women basic need of food and groceries. It was great. How do I earn their trust? The same way you earn anybody else's trust with time. I mean, I hope I've earned their trust, some of them. Consistency is crucial. We're going to our 6th year. When we first came, we didn't have the level of engagement that we do now. And I do think that consistency is what's needed. And it's been something we have to remind ourselves, consistency. We also have learned it's important not to make promises. You cannot make a promise because if you don't keep it, there goes the trust. So when we engage with them, we're like, we'll see what we can do. We'll get back to you. We'll look into it, because they've been lied to. We know what it's like. You don't have to be in the industry to understand what it's like to have trust broken, to have somebody promise you something and not do it. And we have to work that fine line between providing hope and not making false promises. So consistency, keeping our word, not making promises, building relationship, like going on the road and talking to them, calling them on their phone, checking in with them, praying for them. I feel like it's with any relationship, you have to put in the work to build a relationship. You might be working from a deficit here because the guards are up. But like with any relationship, if you're consistent and trustworthy and operate with integrity, they see, they know, and they begin to trust. I hope. How do we advocate for sex workers and victims of trafficking in the broader community? Awareness is crucial, and we try to use research that's been done before to point out the issues that they will be facing. So, one researcher has said that the PTSD for sex workers is that at the same level of combat soldiers. So we try to put that information out there. We try to, with their permission, if possible, share their stories. We share our experiences. So like on my page, I will share when I have really impactful experiences with a woman so that people can humanize and know that they're not these bad guys or ominous beings way over there. They're real life human beings with real life human hurts. We go to schools, we go to churches, wherever we're encouraged to be or allowed to be or invited to be, hint hint, to share what we experience. And we use stuff like this. We just share on our social media platforms so that persons can see these are real women, real issues, real moms, real aunts, real people that didn't have somebody to protect them, and they just need for us to think differently and see them differently. Self-care and burnout is crucial and such a question people ask very often of me in this space. Do I prioritize it? I'm learning to prioritize self-care. I'm one of those keep going kinds of people, and I'm learning to be more respectful of the temple that God has given me. And so, like Christmas time, we just say, yeah, door, shop lock. I just start the month of the year, I just go, okay, and we're taking a break. Also, learning to go with what I sense. There have been more than once where I'm like, I don't think we should go out tonight. And that's less self-care and more I find out later on that there was a shootout in the area. And that's probably that is the Holy Spirit giving me a heads up that tonight not the night to go out for our own protection. I've also had to learn to be firm with what the agency can and cannot do. And it's, again, a learning curve. It's good that we have a board and I have people who I can bounce things off to be like, here are the needs. How do we balance what we can and cannot do in a wise way? I am learning to not always go to every request and every need and driving myself hither and yon, but bringing people with me or delegating it so that other persons on the team can be a part of it. It's a hard question to answer because I'm the kind of person that, like, if nobody will do it, I'll just do it. But I am learning that it's not sustainable. Talk about sustainability. It is not sustainable. It's hard not to do. It's the honest truth. I am the person that will run to you if you call. But I'm learning to take my breaks, take a deep breath before I say yes, delegate, and bounce things off my team so I can know if it's something we can do, something we can't do. I'm learning. Preventing women, people, boys, girls from getting on the streets. I get kind of, I think the situation is so nuanced that it's slightly, hear me out, slightly unfair to ask for these broad brushed, institutionalized programs to be implemented. So I think it's important that we have support systems like a guidance counselor. I think it's important that we have group homes that are safe for the children to go to. I think it's important that we have better transitional programming for persons who leave these group homes and now are 18 and need to go into the workforce. I do believe that we have these remnants of programs, and we have some really good ones and some not so good ones. And so to prevent a person from coming over, from running away from a family of abuse, from running away from a children's home, from running away or getting kidnapped or taken, is that these institutions that we already have in place be better. What do I mean by that? How many horror stories are we hearing of from both the persons who have left the children's homes and the persons who are in the children's homes, that the kids don't feel safe or loved? Are we hiring top level persons to work in these homes, or are we giving it to persons who couldn't get any other job, or who are just so burnt out from the job that they're not able to show love and care to these kids? So we take them from an abusive home and put them in a group home with tired, overworked, underpaid staff who can't or struggle to give the compassion and care that the kids need, who can't watch them consistently from other persons in there who from their own trauma become predators to the very people in there who are victims. Are we having guidance counselors who are trustworthy, who are not repeating what these kids tell them in a room to the staff, to the teachers, to their peers, that they hear it back? These are the complaints I hear from kids when I work in the school system, that they don't trust guidance counselors because they repeat the story. So the guidance counselors who are the frontliners in these schools aren't being told stuff that would protect these kids. You put them in a group home and they run away because there it's not safe. We have these things in place, but we need to build capacity, strengthen, have them more trauma informed, pay the staff better, have more staff so that the persons who are working there can get the rest, so they can provide the love and care that these kids are going to need when they're taken from abusive homes. I don't know if we're going to make it and be perfect, but I do think we can improve what we already have. In a non-profit, raising funds can be such a challenge. Last year, I decided to do this full time, leaving my very stable 9 to 5, which was very hard for me. And, coming over into the space of doing it full time, you realize that there is a whole lot more to the needs of running a charity than you thought. So we definitely need help with covering operational costs. So as an organization, we have been able to always hit the target for any initiative that we plan. Persons are very willing to give towards an event, a thing, a program. But it's harder to get persons to say, okay, you know what, each month I'm just gonna take from what I have, move things around and give like $1,000 every month, or $10,000 every month, or $100,000 every month, to ensure that the lights are on, the bills are paid, the staff is paid, so that they can do the work that they do. So it's one of the main needs that we have, to have persons just come alongside and give monthly. We continue to develop programming to help with, providing groceries, providing counseling, providing mental health help. And it takes work to get those things done. And in order to do that, we need to pay staff. We need to provide transportation costs for our volunteers. And so it really is helpful if persons consider, going to our website, clicking the donate button and saying every month I'm going to be giving to this organization to get the work done so that we can continue to support the women that we serve. Another big thing is that these women need jobs, and I can completely understand that, you don't know these women and they're still, growing and learning, but, to be able to do skills training and go to school, they have to have some kind of income as well. So maybe supporting a person, sponsoring a person, like, okay, I'm sponsoring you to go to school and I will take care of your monthly grocery bill or your monthly rent, so that you don't have to think about that while you're in school. That'd be really helpful to be able to continue the work that we're doing. So, prioritizing safety and confidentiality. That's been a learning process for us. We really try not to feature them until they're at a place where they're comfortable being featured. We've learned that, some of them, their families don't even know what they're doing. I remember I had to deliver groceries once to somebody, and I had to say something else to the person who was picking it up on their behalf, just so that the person wouldn't be aware of what was happening. So it takes a lot of reminding to the team, and even persons who have come to us who are in the marketing world, who want to be like, I want to show this, I want to see this, I want to come under, or to be like, no, you can't come, you can't be a part of this. And honestly, it can be hard too, because many persons who support want to see who they support. They want to know that this story, this issue, this situation has changed, but it's a thin line, and we're not always doing it perfect. We have failed at times. We have not been as diligent, and we continue to learn from those experiences that it's important to guard their stories, to guard them, to protect them, because they've been used to being used. I don't want us to be the persons who use them as well and perpetuate that, even if it means, like, once we had to delete content that we made because it was just not going to be helpful for them and the relationship that we have with them. So it's a learning curve. We continue to learn from other agencies that do things, and we learn from our mistakes when we mess up, and we have to constantly remember that they're human beings and they're not cattle. They're not people to just look at me, so yeah. So you have engaged with this content, you've heard about Pursued, you've come to the page, you've been familiar with us in some way, shape, and form, and you're like, okay, so what do we do? How do we help? You can have us come to your school or church to share more. You could help us to get a safe place where we can provide counseling that is specifically geared towards the women that we serve. We've been trained to provide evidence-based therapy and group support for these women. You can provide a place for us to do that. If you provide remedial training courses, reach out to us and say, we want to sponsor and take care of training these women. If you have a hotel or a helping industry job, you can call us and say, we want to hire some of these women. We are willing to take them on as staff members. We want to give them an opportunity at something else. These women need options, and you can help these women give them options. You do farming, you can train persons to do farming. Reach out to us and help us to get these girls trained so that they can farm, they can produce, they can help themselves and not be so dependent on using their bodies to be able to make an income. You can support taking care of the operational costs. You can say, you know what, Stacey, we're going to take care of salaries. We're going to take care of overhead costs so that you guys can focus on the work you're doing. We need your hands. We need your help. We need you. Remember, our goal at Pursuit is we go where they are. We can't go where they are if you don't help us to go.